Hi, my name is Lisa Gallant. What you're about to see is a recipe for an interactive participatory youth conference, so pay attention. The first ingredient is collaboration. Don't try to do it all by yourself. Get lots of community partners and pool your resources. Secondly, you need direct contact, person to person. Don't rely on letters, fax, and email to jumpstart your conference. During your planning process, don't forget logistics, the nuts and bolts. Where will your participants stay? How are they going to eat? How are they going to get there? Make sure capable people on your team handle these details. If you want an exciting conference, go for critical mass. Make sure there's lots of youth, lots of resource people, and lots of things to do. Think big. Sure, plan your agenda, but don't forget flexibility. Be aware of what's happening on the floor of the conference and be ready to change your agenda at any time. Go with the flow. Don't be boring. Push participation. Involve the youth while planning and facilitating the conference. In the end, it will be a lot less work and a lot more fun. And finally, don't cook bland. Spice it up. Coming up next is a song written and performed by Kathy Peddle of Corner Book. Don't go away.
I got the blues, the environment blues. It's time people learn what products to use. Stop using aerosols, the CFCs, on nature's behalf. I'm saying please. As you can see, I got my puffer. That smoke from the mill sure makes breathing tougher. As for the streets, I don't mean to sound bitter, but no harm is done by picking up litter. When throwing out garbage, stop all this haste. Make a compost rather than waste. If put in a spot where you have to choose, always recycle, return or reuse. I think it's time to start thinking ahead. It's time too late for our fishies. They're already dead. My song is ending. I hope my point's clear. We don't own the earth. It's our earth to share. My song is now over. I just hope you see that it all starts with you when you're enviro-friendly.
Okay now, before we begin, do you remember all the ingredients? Thought not. Okay, one last time. Collaboration, direct contact, logistics, critical mass, flexibility, participation, and the spice of your choice.
One of the smartest things that we did was to pull in enough partners with enough resources to make sure the event could happen properly. That's always very, very key. And local groups. The Conservation Corps can't waltz into a community and pull off an event like this. We have to partner with other people.
Hi and welcome to the Lions Club here in Stephenville. We're holding a youth environmental conference. We have over 100 participants here and it's being sponsored by...
I think what worked for us was the fact that we did have a we had a diverse group of people, I think, that we had, like we have already mentioned, had different skills in terms of the pre-conference planning. And we each were able to utilize each other's particular skills and resources to make it happen.
Yeah.
We met, or we had conference calls quite frequently, at least once a week. I think we were kept in contact with each other, and we set definite deadlines and definite action plans as to what that we were going to do, and we didn't really leave a lot of things to the last minute.
What we needed to do then was make individual phone calls to every single administrator of every single school that we had sent out information to, and ask them whether or not, first of all, they had received our first two letters, and if they had, whether or not they were planning on sending any students up. At that time, I think that that's probably the key thing, is that direct contact with administrators.
Resource people, Bruce kind of took the lead on identifying resource people for the event, but when we brainstormed amongst all of us who we'd like to see at the event, we all took or contacted people that we knew or that we had contact with, and made that initial contact with I guess our contact, or people that we would know that we would have an easier time convincing to come to the event, as opposed to some stranger calling them to come to the event.
Exactly.
And then I guess Terry then took the follow-up from
Yeah,
there. Once
I
we made
called.
the initial contact,
Yeah.
she made sure that they knew
I
what was
called and
happening.
harassed them and said, you have to come. No,
Yeah. But
Yeah.
keep following up with resource people is key as well. I mean,
definitely.
Yeah, and when you look at the 4 organizations that were represented, like you said, it's not like you're calling a stranger then, because the people who I deal with are very different from the people that the Red Board would deal with, and so it was very easy for me to call up. I knew all the principals that I called up
Yeah.
personally, so it was easy to say, "Hi, Mrs. Barter, you know, we got this conference going on up at in Stephenville," and she had enough confidence in me and the youth corps to know that her kids were going to be all right.
Judging from the graffiti wall, I think that we're going to have lots of new ideas here, and maybe we can get some things started, and we might actually see a big improvement in the next year. And I think that eventually it will pay off in our town, in our province, and even maybe in our country.
A lot of the on-the-ground organizing done through the Red Board office was instrumental. I mean, I was part of a team that built a great concept. But the deliverable on the ground had to be done by real people with busy schedules.
I knew that we had to have a place, and we had to have food, and we had to have a place for kids to stay, and things like that. So, of course, Tracy sort of stepped in with the billeting part of it all, and made sure I didn't have to really worry too much about that. I knew these kids would have a place to stay. And so then I thought, well, okay, Tom, I think, said the Lions Club will be a good spot. So I contacted the Lions Club, and I asked if we could have it on such and such a date, and they said sure. And then I had to think about food, breakfast, lunch, supper. I checked that all out with the Lions Club. That worked out well. Just the basic stuff, but of course, again, like you said, very important, because you can't have 120 or whatever kids it was here with, you got just sort of like, where do we go, what do we do? All these things are very important, yes, and it was pretty easy working with the Lions Club, because they could provide so much, And something else that I thought was pretty neat too was where we tied each school in, like on the peninsula, you had one bus stop at each school and pick up, you know what I mean? That was good, because again, that's another concern, how you're going to get them here and stuff. That worked out really well. Like the Ramia and Burgeo crowd sort of shared a bus, and
Portabass and Burn Islands and Isla Morte, they all shared a bus.
What worked best? I think the size of the event, the complexity, the number of people, the variety of tools used. There's something to be said about this critical mass that happens when you get a lot of young people together in a big building for over a 2-day period. Something happens that can't happen in smaller events. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes a big event can really build an energy that is positive and fun, and people leave thinking, wow, that was an exciting time, and I am more interested in issues of environment and health. And
it's pretty neat. I didn't realize that so many, youths were involved with the environment, because I know when I was that age, which was only about 6-7 years ago, we didn't have anything like this, and I think it's great that they're so involved in it, and they're so educated towards all the problems in our province, and even in Canada and around the world. I'd have to say, I think climate change and ozone depletion and global warming and deforestation are my favorite topics to discuss right now. There's a lot of information. It's always changing. It's not monotonous whatsoever. There's always something a little bit more you learn every day.
I think being really flexible is key to this whole type of work. I mean, it's just impossible to go into an event like this with a rigid schedule. I mean, you have resource people there, you have the ability to use community television, you have the ability to use the internet. In some cases we can even use radio. If we had time, we could do print. We could do a variety of things, photography. But I mean, we can have all these things in our tool bag on the table. But things change so rapidly in these events. The 30 people from Port aux Basques arrive late because the school bus breaks down. That means that you not only can't start on time, or maybe you have to start twice. All kinds of things are possible, and I think we did a really good job this time of being flexible, and we just changed things as we went. Now, of course, with that sort of an approach, you need an organizing committee that is all on the same wavelength and can meet quickly at the drop of a hat. We need to meet. 4 or 5 people get together in a corner and caucus and change the schedule, or caucus on what they want to ask the young people what question they want the young people to answer. Do you want to start now? Do you want to end early? Whatever. But we did that well, and I think that's respectful of young people, any people in a training situation, and I think people responded really well to that.
I think also during the actual facilitation of the event, we tried to stick to the agenda, but we also felt that if something was working and people were having fun at it, try to continue the route that we were going, as opposed to saying, okay, let's stop this now, we're having too much fun, and because we have to move on to the next item on the agenda. But we try to stick to the agenda as best we can, but again, just trying to get the young people as involved as we can.
Oh my gosh. Right now, I would think an immediate problem that I could think of would be our water supply, because I myself have to go to the highway and get my water, so I think it's kind of a terrible thing right now, and hopefully the town will think of some solutions. But one thing I have to comment on here is I'm really surprised at the awareness that these kids have of the issues that are going on around us, and I think they know a lot more about things than we often give them credit for.
We look at communities in our region, and a lot of them are suffering probably unprecedented out-migration with the downturn in the fishery and the other economies in the forestry, and it hasn't been a great time economically. So we look at our communities, and young people are telling us that they really feel that there are no opportunities for them to stay in their community, or even once they've gone and done either post-secondary education or gone somewhere to do found work, they don't see themselves ever returning to their community. So obviously that's a concern to us. And we feel that if the zone's economy is ever to grow or to rebound, youth have to play a key part in that. So if we don't involve youth in what we're doing, it's going to be difficult to have them involved in the future.
I also think that the whole premise of the event is that youth deserve a voice, and that with minimal effort, you can create opportunities for youth to express themselves, and through either the small group discussions or the mock panels or the mock discussions, pre-community television, the live community television, the clips from the taping of sessions, through people working on web pages or whatnot, I would say that there's a very good chance that most of those young people had a chance to say something, which is quite rare when you have a large group of people. That is a tricky thing to do. Get a large group of people together and yet find a way for them to all have a voice.
But I guess the key thing is we have a tendency to organize too many events that it's just speaker after speaker, and there's no opportunity for the participants to participate. And I think that was the strength of the youth events that we've had so far, is that the young people have said to us that they really felt they had an opportunity to get their voice out, or to have their concerns heard. And with this event, we had the young people involved from initially coming up with the idea, getting their input on the agenda and the content. We had members of our youth council involved in a couple of our meetings that they actually gave us some feedback and suggested ideas for the event. And the young people helped us with, the reason we got 120 people there is because the young people helped us get 120 people there.
That's right.
And also the virtual conference worked well because the young people called their schools and harassed their
Teachers.
classmates and teachers to get onto the internet and participate in the discussion. So when you have young people having an opportunity to write their homepage with their views posted, they're able to speak out in their either a small group or in a larger group to voice their concerns, and even just not feel trying to create an environment that they don't feel intimidated that they can't speak out or share their ideas.
I think this work is really important from a variety of perspectives, on many layers. Self-confidence and self-esteem. You could see people developing confidence during these events. The small group facilitators that have never facilitated anything in their lives successfully getting through a 45-minute small group facilitation exercise. Perfect. The people that are doing the report backs, the people who stand up in front of a flip chart and say, our group that was meeting on small community incinerators feels that. I mean, these sorts of reporting back, on camera, off camera, people sitting on panels, live on community television, talking about various issues. This has to build self-confidence.
In the events that I've attended, and I've attended a few in the last couple of years, I think what made this one as successful is the fact that it was a youth conference, and it was, and they were totally involved with it from the day on the 4th, right on through, right up until that night. I mean, it wasn't just a bunch of adults coming in saying, this is what's happening with the environment, like blah, blah, blah. These kids were totally interactive throughout the whole conference, like Tom said, right from the beginning, from the planning stage. Yeah. And that was the feedback that I got from most of the kids that I talked to. They loved the fact that they could, you know, they didn't have to sit there and listen all day, because, I mean, kids do that every day when they go to school. This was an opportunity for them to interact and speak, and that was the feedback that I got from most of them. And I think that's why our conference was so good. Yeah.
The combination of tools. I think a conference could have been a standalone event. A virtual conference. I can't imagine a virtual conference personally being particularly exciting because people aren't face-to-face. A conference and a virtual conference together with young people actually building their web pages and zapping them up to the site and responding to people that are, you know, they're actually there in a group in a hall in Stephenville talking to youth from across the province. I think that's a good combination. Throw in community television. Young people now videotaping one another, you know, responding to emails on the virtual conference, and videotaping sessions that are going on in the regular conference, and preparing a package and going on live community television. That adds a certain excitement.
The websites that the students prepare, but there are also all kinds of other things. I just wanted to mention a little bit about the bulletin board that young people were able to post messages on. That's where we're going into now. We called it the Conservation Corps Wall, and if any of you tuned in today, we actually had 107 kids here today who posted their own issues on a large wall, and so this was an opportunity for young people to do the same thing, but sort of in a different way. So these are all of these things here with the dots are actual responses or questions from young people all over the province. So we'll just go into one here, but let's just see. This one here is from Chris Brenton, and he has a little thing here on municipal waste. So what are some of the newer ways of disposing of municipal waste in larger towns or cities, for example, St. John's?
The technical side of this event helped build some enthusiasm. It appears that a lot of young people have interest in computers and the internet and video, and they know television very well, as most people do. And for them to be given a small amount of instruction and some tips on how to do a particular task, and then to be able to do it and see a product at the end of the day, I think it was very empowering for them.
So I guess we're going to head it back to Jennifer and Amy, and they're going to give you the address. I think the address is showing up on your screen now, or should be. Again, it's www.ryakuga,
www.conservationcorps.nf.ca, and we'd certainly love to have your input if you'd like to post a message on the bulletin board. Like I said, this is going to be ongoing. We have about 80 other messages that we have to reply to, so if you want to ask a question, we'll see if we can't get your question answered. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Tracy and Sherry Lee. That's only a little bit of exciting things within the webpage, and to find out the more exciting things, tune in to this webpage. Okay.
And right now we're going to go to a documentary that was shot by Jennifer and Kim Reed, who is also a second-year journalism student. It's about the Stephenville water supply and the base cleanup. In 1940, the Newfoundland government leased property in the Stephenville area to the U.S. for use as an air base known as Harmon Air Base. The U.S. abandoned the site in 1966, leaving behind 4 kilometers of underground piping and storage tanks. Residents of Stephenville are aware of the dump and the garbage left by the Americans and have been raising concerns over the safety of the water supply. The extent of the pipes was not fully known until a rupture occurred in 1993 and 1995, causing a spill at Beaver Pond. Assessments of the water supply began shortly after this incident. Surface soils and groundwater next to the town's water supply have been found to contain petroleum products. However, water quality tests have indicated the water is safe to drink. Seen here are more examples of garbage left by the Americans after the Army base closed down. These barrels are located around the Stephenville water supply. Dr. Diana Maservi, who has a PhD in chemistry and an instructor at the College of the North Atlantic, disagrees. Her students and friends were puzzled by high numbers of Crohn's and colitis and began studies on the West Coast water supply. She says much of the West Coast water comes from surface sources which contain bog runoff, which is high in organic matter. Her theory is that the chlorine added to the drinking water is reacting with the organic matter, forming new deadly chemicals. One of these chemicals are known as trihalomethanes, or THMs, a known cancer-causing agent. An acceptable level of THMs is 100 parts per billion, while our water supply shows 200 to 300 THMs, which is way above drinking water standards. We recently spoke to Dr. Diana Maservi at the College of the North Atlantic, where she teaches, and she told us her views on the Stephenville water supply.
So you have, in much of the drinking water in Newfoundland, you do have a common problem, but that has to be looked at in each individual area. If you're talking about water supplies in towns where they take their water from ponds, here in Newfoundland you have a major problem because the soil around Newfoundland is very boggy, and that means automatically you get a lot of what's called organic material dissolved in the water. You get a high yellow color, and that tells you that your water contains a substance in there which is not normally put in drinking water. If you're taking your water out of the ground, underground, as they do in Stephenville Crossing, that's nature's way of providing us with excellent drinking water, because it's clean, it's purified, and it contains good minerals. And if you've had the occasion to have a good glass of water in Stephenville Crossing, you know what I mean, because it tastes wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, now that's another thing which sometimes bears explanation. THM stands for trihalomethane. Okay. It is an end product that you can form. If you start with this water that we're just talking about, which is yellow in color and contains organic bog material, if you add chlorine to that, it'll form a variety of chemical products. And I'm sure you'll see through the underway glass, you'll see the yellow color. Now, anytime you can see yellow color through that much depth of water, then you're exceeding the recommended guidelines for color.
Dr. Maservi says she doesn't like drinking the town water because of the high THM levels in it.
And
In November 1996, the Newfoundland and Labrador Housing Corporation gave a $185,000 contract to Agra Earth and Environment Limited to start doing assessments of the old Army base. Recently, a conference was held in Stephenville to announce a $1.3 million cleanup. Representatives from Newfoundland and other provinces, along with the Honourable Art Reid, were present at the conference to release plans for the cleanup. Peter Honeygold, Vice President of Engineering and Development with the Housing Corporation, was also at the conference to explain how the money was being used for the cleanup.
Oil in the tanks, remove the majority of those tanks that need to be removed, and also in cooperation with the Ministry of Transport deal with the oil lines, the supply lines, the underground supply lines.
Concerns about Stephenville's water supply were raised at the convention. Residents in the area are worried about high levels of Crohn's and colitis on the west coast of Newfoundland. The mess sitting around the base has been called an environmental crisis, and people want to know if it's affecting the water supply. Mayor C. Stein says installing a new water system is a $26 million project, which involves putting in artesian wells. A water treatment plant will cost an additional $7 million. Stein was at the convention answering questions about the water. Stein told reporters that the water supply is safe now, but it's a potential time bomb which needs to be addressed immediately. Mike Vovskoff, manager of engineering services with Agra, stated during the convention that traces of insecticides have been found around the water supply.
There's no argument about it. We always know that. And before, I don't know what they're really planning, but we now have a commitment to the minister. Let's move ahead and look at those dumps and see where they are. At the end of the day, I guess we know since I've been mayor that we got to get out of those water supplies anyway, because we can't guarantee the dumps will not. I'll put it differently. All dumps will someday leach, no matter how long. It may not be in my lifetime or your lifetime, but 50 or 100 years from now, they're going to leach. And until they're removed, which seems to be impossible dollar-wise, we just got to get out of it. So our future's in wells. And this, meanwhile, we test every day, every week, anyway, to make sure that there's no problem there. But it could happen overnight. We could discover something, and then that's why we got to be so diligent. The water is safe, and it may, I don't know how long it'll stay safe. It may stay for another 50 years, but we won't take that chance. We know down the road someday that it will not be safe, maybe, because there is dumps upstream from it. Therefore, we monitor it. That's all we can do. We inherit it. We didn't create the dumps. We didn't create the water supply. We just became we inherited. So now we have to make steps to just counteract what's there.
Thank you. Dr. Minnie Wasmere, CEO of the Western Community Health Board, was also at the convention answering questions about cancer risks.
One of the things we looked at in the Department of Health was most likely people are going to be concerned about whether they can get cancer, okay? And are the rates of cancer in this area higher than other areas? So what I did is my department went back to the cancer registry and got the data from 1986 to 1995 so that we could show people, if they were interested, that they could see the number of cancers you have here per rate. It's a rate, it's per 100,000. Now, you know you don't have 100,000 people, but they have to multiply it to make it 100,000 rate, and then you compare it to in Newfoundland, and in reality, in that 10-year period, you do not have an increased rate over Newfoundland, okay?
After 30 years of neglect, some action has finally been taken to clean up the pollutants left by the Americans. The next question is, when will the town begin concentrating on a new water treatment system?
The Youth, Environment and the Economy Conference was sponsored by the Conservation Corps, Newfoundland and Labrador, and the Long Range Regional Economic Development Board. With help from communities and schools, the Community Education Initiative, the Office of International Initiatives, and the School of Journalism, College of the North Atlantic, and Ryakuga, and funding from ACOA, Human Resource Development Canada, and the Community Animation Program. Special thanks to the Lions Club of Stephenville, Regional Cable, and many resource people who turned up to make the conference a success. Thanks to Kathy Peddle for letting us use her song, and hats off to the 1995 students of Regina High for making a cool video. Also thanks to former journalism students Jennifer Stagg and Kim Reed for letting us show their video on the Stephenville water supply. Great content, great job. And above all, thanks to the participants who filled the hall and made the Lions Club rock. Well, that's it. If you want to know more, ask Bruce or Tom.